1. The pig on trial, medieval Europe's animal justice. In the 13th and 14th centuries, Europe's courts sometimes called upon a defendant who couldn't speak, reason, or even stand upright. A pig. Yes, real animals were put on trial. A sow that killed a child could be dressed in human clothing, paraded before a judge, assigned a lawyer, and sentenced to hanging. In 1386, in the French town of Falaise, a pig was executed for killing a baby. Local monks recorded the event in full legal form. The animal was found guilty of murder, dressed in a waistcoat and breeches, and hanged in the public square before a crowd. Why? Because medieval Europeans believed animals were part of the moral universe. If they could commit evil acts, they must face human justice. In some cases, even swarms of insects or rats were tried in absentia. Priests read out summonses commanding them to leave the area or face divine curses. The absurdity makes us smile today, but it reflects a society desperate to impose moral order in a chaotic world. When a pig was punished, it wasn't just about vengeance. It was a ritual that reassured the community that justice, in some strange way, still existed. 1. The pig on trial, medieval Europe's animal justice. In the 13th and 14th centuries, Europe's courts sometimes called upon a defendant who couldn't speak, reason, or even stand upright. A pig. Yes, real animals were put on trial. A sow that killed a child could be dressed in human clothing, paraded before a judge, assigned a lawyer, and sentenced to hanging. In 1386, in the French town of Falaise, a pig was executed for killing a baby. Local monks recorded the event in full legal form. The animal was found guilty of murder, dressed in a waistcoat and breeches, and hanged in the public square before a crowd. Why? Because medieval Europeans believed animals were part of the moral universe. If they could commit evil acts, they must face human justice. In some cases, even swarms of insects or rats were tried in absentia. Priests read out summonses commanding them to leave the area or face divine curses. The absurdity makes us smile today, but it reflects a society desperate to impose moral order in a chaotic world. When a pig was punished, it wasn't just about vengeance. It was a ritual that reassured the community that justice, in some strange way, still existed.
3. The affair of the poisons, France's deadly fashion trend. 17th century France was a glittering kingdom of silk, wine, and gossip. But beneath the perfume of Versailles lurked one of Europe's strangest crime waves. Between 1677 and 1682, a network of fortune-tellers, alchemists, and noblewomen were accused of poisoning rivals, lovers, and even family members. Paris became obsessed with secret vials and mystical powders. The scandal reached the highest levels when suspicions touched King Louis XIV's mistress, Madame de Montespan. The affair of the poisons wasn't merely murder, it was fashionable murder, tied with love potions, witchcraft, and satanic rites. The Sun King responded with the Chambre Ardente, a special burning court that conducted investigations in secrecy. Hundreds were interrogated. 36 people were executed, many burned alive in public squares. One woman, Catherine Desayes, La Voisin, admitted to organizing black masses where infants were allegedly sacrificed. Whether true or not, her confession was enough to send her to the stake in 1680. The punishments were designed not only to eliminate the guilty, but to restore the moral shine of a court dripping with sin. The affair of the poisons remains a chilling reminder that when paranoia meets politics, even superstition can become law.
4. The dancing plague of 1518, when the crime was losing control. In July 1518, the citizens of Strasbourg, in the Holy Roman Empire, witnessed one of history's strangest mass events. A woman named Frau Trophäa began dancing uncontrollably in the street. Within days, dozens joined her. They could not stop. Authorities, convinced it was a case of hot blood or demonic influence, declared it a moral and medical offense, a threat to civic order. Instead of rest, they ordered more dancing. Musicians were hired, and a stage was built so the possessed could dance themselves free. The punishment for losing control of one's body became the punishment itself. Many collapsed and died from exhaustion or stroke. Modern historians suspect mass hysteria or ergot poisoning, but to the 16th century mind, this was a spiritual crime against God and community. The lesson: even involuntary acts could be criminal if they disturbed the order of the world.
5. The Poisoned Book of the Borgias. During the Renaissance, the line between art, science, and crime blurred into gold. Few families embodied this better than the Borgias, the infamous papal dynasty known for political cunning and rumored poisonings. Lucrezia Borgia's name still evokes whispers of deceit, though many legends were exaggerated by enemies. But one alleged crime remains unforgettable: the poisoned book. According to 16th century accounts, a rare manuscript gifted to a rival cleric was coated with arsenic on its pages. As the victim turned the pages, the powder entered his bloodstream through small cuts, killing him slowly over weeks. Whether true or propaganda, it inspired fear across Italy. Scholars began wearing gloves to read gifts, and the Vatican quietly inspected all deliveries. The punishment for this invisible crime was irony itself: fear and distrust among the learned class, the very people meant to preserve knowledge.
6. The Case of the Green Children of Woolpit. Not all crimes end with bloodshed. Sometimes the crime is existence itself. In 12th century England, villagers in Woolpit, Suffolk, found two children emerging from a wolf pit. Their skin was green, and they spoke no known language. They were arrested as possible fairy spies. After months of interrogation and confusion, the boy died. The girl adapted, learning English and losing her green hue. She claimed she and her brother had come from a land of perpetual twilight beneath the earth. The real crime here was difference. Medieval England, steeped in superstition, treated the unknown as guilt. The punishment was alienation and death by misunderstanding.
7. The Case of Mary Toft and the Rabbit Births, England, 1726. In late 1726, a poor woman named Mary Toft from Godalming, England, convinced doctors that she had given birth to rabbits. Yes, rabbits. Surgeons were summoned from London. Even King George I's physician attended. Toft produced several dead rabbits from her womb, leaving learned men baffled. When the hoax was exposed, she had inserted the animals herself. Her crime was deception of the crown and corruption of medical science. Her punishment was public humiliation and imprisonment for fraud. But society also punished the physicians, ridiculing them for their gullibility. Londoners sang ballads about the Rabbit Woman, and the case became an early study in mass hysteria and the thirst for sensational news.
8. The Baker Who Started the Great Fire of London. In 1666, a small spark in Thomas Farriner's bakery ignited the Great Fire of London. The blaze destroyed over 13,000 houses and most of the medieval city. Though the fire was accidental, desperate citizens needed someone to blame. Farriner escaped early suspicion, but a foreign watchmaker named Robert Hubert confessed falsely to setting it. The court ignored contradictions. Hubert wasn't even in London when the fire began. Yet he was hanged at Tyburn for arson against the crown. His bizarre confession, possibly forced, shows how punishment can become a ritual of comfort for frightened societies. The real crime was chaos. Hubert's death gave it meaning.
9. The Emperor Who Outlawed Time. China's Calendar Crimes. In the Ming Dynasty, emperors ruled not only people, but time itself. The imperial calendar was sacred, declaring each new year, each lunar phase, was a political act. So when astronomers or local officials dared to issue their own calendars, it wasn't seen as a clerical error, it was rebellion. To rewrite time was to challenge heaven's mandate. In 1630, scholar Zhao Yu published an unofficial almanac correcting errors in the state version. The emperor's court branded it stealing heaven's rhythm. Zhao was arrested, publicly flogged, and his printing plates melted down before him. The punishment wasn't simply for making a book, it was for suggesting the universe could run without the emperor's permission. To ancient China, the greatest crime wasn't treason of the sword, it was treason of the stars.
10. The Brazen Bull of Phalaris, Ancient Sicily's Fiery Justice. Few punishments were as gruesomely inventive as the Brazen Bull, a hollow bronze statue created for the Sicilian tyrant Phalaris in the 6th century BC. Criminals were locked inside the bull and a fire lit beneath. As they screamed, pipes in the nostrils converted the cries into a sound like a roaring animal. The inventor, Perillus, proudly demonstrated the mechanism to Phalaris, who rewarded him by testing it on him first. Phalaris himself later met the same fate when overthrown. The bull became the perfect metaphor for tyranny. Every cruelty eventually devours its master.
11. Trial by cheese, medieval Switzerland's culinary justice. In 13th century Switzerland, dairy wasn't just a diet, it was divine. So when monks accused each other of theft or lying, they sometimes turned to the most delicious courtroom imaginable: trial by cheese. A consecrated wheel of cheese was placed on the altar. The accused swore innocence and then ate a piece. If he choked or couldn't swallow, God had spoken, guilty. It sounds absurd, yet such ordeals embody deep belief. Nature, food, even digestion were extensions of divine truth. One chronicler noted a case where both monks choked and vomited. The verdict? Both guilty, and the cheese was burned for blasphemy. 12. The Execution of the Rooster, Basel, 1474. Before PETA ever existed, Basel held perhaps the first recorded animal trial for witchcraft against a rooster that had laid an egg. Roosters weren't supposed to lay eggs. The unnatural act was seen as demonic. Local priests feared the egg could hatch a basilisk, a serpent so poisonous it could kill with a glance. The court ruled that the rooster had acted against nature. It was solemnly executed, burned at the stake before a crowd. To modern minds, it's madness. To medieval logic, it was cosmic housekeeping. 13. The Poison Wedding, Florence, 1536. The marriage of Alessandro de' Medici, Duke of Florence, to Margaret of Austria was supposed to unite two powerful houses. Instead, it birthed one of Renaissance Italy's strangest crimes. Alessandro, infamous for cruelty, was assassinated by his cousin Lorenzino, who claimed to be freeing Florence. Lorenzino then fled, only to be hunted down years later by assassins employed by the Medici. But the bizarre twist? To purify the city from Alessandro's sins, Florentine nobles organized a mock wedding between his blood-stained armor and a pig carcass stuffed with poison herbs. It was paraded through the streets and buried in a cemetery for criminals. Justice turned symbolic, punishing the idea of tyranny, not just its corpse.
14. The Case of the Talking Heads. England, 1586. When Queen Elizabeth I's spies uncovered the Babington Plot, a conspiracy to assassinate her and place Mary Queen of Scots on the throne, the punishment became theater. The conspirators were hanged, drawn, and quartered before cheering crowds. But the real spectacle came later. Their severed heads were boiled in tar and mounted on London Bridge. According to one account, 2 heads began to move their mouths, causing panic. Guards swore they saw lips forming words of repentance. Was it muscle twitching or something else? Either way, the rumor spread that the dead were confessing. For Elizabeth's regime, this was perfect propaganda. Even death itself endorsed royal justice.
15. Napoleon's posthumous punishment. Few men conquered Europe as completely as Napoleon Bonaparte. But even after death, his body remained a political prisoner. Exiled on the island of St. Helena, he died in 1821. British officials refused his wish to be buried in France, declaring that his ashes shall rest under our watch. It wasn't until 1840 that France negotiated his body's return, treating the event like a divine resurrection, le retour des cendres, or the return of the ashes. His punishment lasted 2 decades beyond the grave, a reminder that sometimes nations fear ghosts more than armies.
16. The Mouth Sewing of the Blasphemer. Russia, 1650. Under Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich, blasphemy wasn't merely a sin, it was sedition. One chronicler tells of a soldier who cursed the Virgin Mary during a drunken argument. The sentence? His mouth was sewn shut with horsehair before execution, so that foul words might never again escape. This gruesome ritual symbolized moral repair, closing the gate through which evil had passed. Ironically, the punishment became a popular iconographic motif in churches. Saints depicted sewing demons' mouths closed, warning that silence is sometimes holier than speech. 17. The Coffin Trial of New England, 1692. During the Salem witch trials, not all accusations ended at the gallows. In nearby Connecticut, a woman named Mercy Disborough was subjected to the coffin trial. Accused of witchcraft, she was placed in a coffin, sealed for several hours, and left in a church. The belief, if she were truly a witch, demons would free her. When the coffin was opened and she was still inside, terrified but alive, the court declared divine innocence. Yet the trauma left her speechless for life. Even Mercy, it seems, could feel like death.
18. The Trial of Peter Stump, Germany's werewolf. In 1589, German farmers captured a man they believed to be a werewolf, Peter Stump of Bedburg. Under torture, he confessed to using a magic belt that turned him into a wolf to kill cattle and people. His punishment was designed to reverse the transformation. First, his limbs were broken on a wheel, then his head was cut off and mounted beside a stuffed wolf. The line between folklore and justice vanished. The villagers believed they'd destroyed both man and monster.
19. The smell of guilt. France, 1740. In the small French town of Nîmes, perfumer Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, yes, the real inspiration for perfume's fictional killer, was tried for murdering young women to extract their scent. The case fascinated Enlightenment Europe. His crime seemed scientific curiosity turned satanic. Before execution, authorities staged a public purification. Citizens carried burning incense through the streets, while Grenouille was doused in rose water, then burned alive. His ashes were mixed into the perfume stores as a warning that beauty could conceal death.
20. The Hunger Artist. Austria, 1890s. In the late 19th century, Europe developed a morbid fascination with fasting performers, people who starved themselves in glass cages for art. One artist in Vienna extended his performance beyond the legal limit of 40 days. When he finally collapsed, the city charged his promoter with manslaughter by art. The judge's sentence was poetic. He was ordered to spend a month eating every meal in public, to remind all men that appetite is holy. The absurdity of the verdict marked the end of the fad and perhaps the beginning of performance art's moral reckoning.